afternoon to everybody. This is the meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Today is December the 6th of 2018. First item on the agenda is call to order. Roll call.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Erasmo Villarreal,
Present.
Jose Tellez, Carlos Flores, Javier Compián,
Present.
Raúl Ugalde,
Here.
Johnny Narvaez,
Present.
Joe Villarreal, Daniel Lopez, Jorge Dominguez.
Present.
For the record, Mr. Sherm, you do have quorum.
Thank you. Do we have any commissioners who called in to be excused? Commissioner Tellez? Anybody else? No? Do we have a motion?
Move to excuse Commissioner Tellez. And second.
And a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. The next item, can everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item that we have is the approval of the minutes. We don't have minutes, do we?
You have the minutes printed out in front of you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We would like to go ahead and ask if you could revise, there was roll call, Commissioner Tellez, motion to excuse Narvaez and Villarreal, and he was the chairman at the time. He made the motion.
Okay. So what do you want us to do there?
If you can go ahead and redo the motion, because he can't.
Oh, he was the
motion.
chairman, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Who wants to redo the motion to excuse Commissioner Narvaez and Commissioner Joe Villarreal from the last meeting? We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
And a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, give you all a few minutes to just go over the minutes. All right.
Make a motion to approve the minutes dated November 15, 2018.
We have a second? Second. And a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries, thank you. Next item, do we have any citizens' comments at this point? Thank you. Next item is public hearings. All right. First public hearing we have is amending the Land Development Code of the City of Laredo by revising the dimensional standards, Article 5, Section 24.77, and the special use permit, Article 6, Section 24-93, and any other matters incidental here too. All right, this is a public hearing. Who will be making this presentation?
Good evening, Jerry Pinzon, acting building official. And we were tasked by City Council to review the dimensional standards to see, as it was worded, the best possible use for the land use for the property owner. We took this task to the TRB, and we met for the last 4 months, pretty much. And we came up with some setback proposals. Do they have a copy of?
You should have the most updated on your desk. what was submitted before is not what we're revising today.
This one, correct? Yeah.
Yes, that would be it.
Okay, and, how do we switch to this one? Okay, so essentially what was proposed to change for the, all the residentials, and what's gonna happen is pretty much have a 5-foot setback all around in the sides, in the back. And then in the front, the carport currently stands only at, let me go ahead and. Yeah. So what you have is currently, you have, here's your house, and you could actually have a structure non-attached in the back, as long as you have a 5-foot back setbacks. Okay, and so that's as you have it currently. Okay, now this does not include, if you have a utility easement, you have to respect that. That does not affect the utility easements, whether it be 12-7, whatever the easement is. It's just for when you don't have a setback. A utility easement, excuse me. Is the one. Okay, and currently, your carport can only go 10 foot or half of the 20-foot setback in the front. Okay, whether you're in the corner or on the side. So the committee got together and we came up with,
Right, it's because I passed the existing plan.
okay, this one.
Yeah, that's what I passed up. Yeah.
Okay, this is what you have here. Okay, so now, if you get rid of the, you connect your carport in the back, or carport, your palapa, you can have that 5-foot backyard setback. And the only thing, and in the front, you can go all the way up to the property line. Okay? And whether you're in a corner, okay, or on the side lot. One of the observations that were made was that currently, if you know, whatever your property stands up to, or your slab, you could pretty much put a side corridor, and the current ordinance allows you to go within half of that foot setback. So for a total of 5 between your neighbor to neighbor. So what with this 5-foot setback, it won't allow you, you have to maintain that 5-foot setback on the sides to give you enough space to go through the back. And so it's no longer half, it'll be 5 all around.
I don't think I follow
Okay,
what you're trying to tell me.
the issue is this, when you have a new plant, let's say you have a brand new home that you're building, right? No, that's in other words, it starts out like this. Somebody builds the structures, and that's what they can do. In other words, they can go 20 feet from the back, 20 feet from the the front, 5 feet from the sides, and then maintain your 20-foot parking, 2-car parkings.
Right.
This particular ones have 2-car garages, which sometimes they enclose them, and when they do enclose them, well, you still have the two parking. You can park 2 cars in the front. But when somebody, after they own the home, they can come and apply for a permit, and the maximum that they can do is they can put an accessory building in the back that's 2.5 feet from
property
the
line.
neighbor on all sides. They can put an open covered porch, like you'll see this in the older neighborhoods, where in here, there's like a tandem garages. So that conceivably, they can get 2.5 feet from their neighbor in the back, 2.5 feet from the neighbor on the side, 2.5 feet from the neighbor on the side, 2.5 neighbor, 2.5. So what it does is it reduces the access to get to the back, and they can come in and pull a permit for a covered patio on the front. So the proposed from the committee is they're proposing that in lieu of having the 2.5 foot setbacks, that those go away. The 2.5 foot setbacks no longer apply, but that you can attach your structure all the way to so basically what's happening is you're flipping the areas. The area in between the structures gets pushed to the back, and now you have a clean line all around the perimeter of your property, with the exception of adding the covered patio here with an open, but with a vertical setback
Up to the property line.
up to the property line. So it cleans up around the perimeter, and we really are not adding any more impervious cover. If somebody gets aggressive, if somebody gets aggressive on their home site, they can do this. In the future, if they get aggressive, they can do that. However, if you look at the table that he put up previously, if you want to get aggressive with your property, in other words, if you want to do this on an existing flat, then they're going to have to provide a survey to the building department, and that survey is going to list all the existing easements that are on the plat. Plus, the surveyor is going to have to look at the deed records to make sure that there's not any easements that are not recorded on the plat that got recorded, that got placed after the fact. And it allows the homeowner, more flexibility on how they can use their property, and it cleans up the area around the perimeter. So this would be, that's the ordinance, or the proposed ordinance on existing subdivisions.
On existing subdivisions that are already built out.
That are already built out, right. If you have because in other words, they can do this today. On an existing subdivision, they can do this.
Yeah, you can add an accessory structure, either a building shed or a maid's quarters or whatever, I understand that.
So,
But now, what you're proposing is that they can build all the way out to within 5 feet on an existing subdivision, which everybody has 20-foot setbacks.
right, but in an existing,
So, how would that work?
well, they can do this today.
Yes, it can, but that's an accessory structure. It's not, very few people build right now maid's quarters, which is really a living quarter. They mostly are, either a palapa or a utility shed, that kind of stuff.
Well, there's a lot of instances where, and if you have access to like the Google Maps, there's a lot of instances where families build their property all the way to the back 5 feet. I mean, that's stuff that.
Yeah, okay.
That's a recommendation. It was a recommendation when we heard talking to the council people. They're saying we want the families to be able to use as much, to have more discretion on the use of their property. So this proposal, basically, it's not, it's kind of rearranging where they can build their structure, and they can attach to it to the back where in the past they couldn't.
What, if I may? Mr.
Go
Chair.
ahead.
So what's gonna happen with new subdivisions? Because
Okay, on the
the
new
the way,
subdivisions?
the way it is right now, Mr. Ruiz, I know that, there may be an issue of people, residents trying to build a palapa, and what they do, they build it overnight on the weekends,
Yes.
and
Which is what we want to stop.
Right, and, according to Mr. Pinzon, what they're trying to avoid, it's, the bad or the poor structures being built on the backyards. So I think one of the reasons that the councilman contacted, the building department was to assure that the residents would be able to build in the backyard, provided they would get a permit and that the structure
So they don't.
be inspected, and I agree with that. As far as moving the setbacks, I feel that, the 20 feet that we have right now, I think it's something that we are providing for the residents to enjoy. I think it would be up to, on a single basis, on each person that approaches the building department to decide how much they want to build, and the building department to provide a guideline that will provide that type of structure.
On existing, but not necessarily the new.
Yes.
So it
Because
goes,
what I
once you
can
build
see
it,
that-
then you come back and,
Yes, sir. Because what I understand is that the councilman, they said, well, there's been some complaints that they can't build their little structure on the back. So I think 20 feet should stay the same, Mr. Council, Mr. Chairman, because we have to allow the people to make a decision as to how they want to use their backyard. The 20 feet, if they want to build a palapa, that's fine. If they want to have a little swimming pool, or they want to have carne asada, whatever, it's their choice. If we bring that ordinance, then we're allowing for the setbacks to be smaller and people to actually be moving into constructions or residences that are provided by developers that might not dignify the lifestyle.
I guess one of the questions that I have too for you guys is, what cities have these kind of setbacks? If any?
other cities?
Yes.
Um,
Have y'all researched that?
no, no.
Well, Johnny's not here.
All right,
but,
so you haven't researched that. Now, let me ask you, have you all done any kind of research as to the more cluster that you give per acre, what are the social effects on humans? Do you all have a study on that? Because I know that normally when you cluster more people together, there's impacts on people. And I'll tell you where I'm coming from. Most people here, what do most people here like to do in their backyards? Cook out, right? So we started reducing setbacks. I got 5 and I got 5. I got 10 feet in between residents. So this guy's cooking out and his smoke's going into somebody's house. Could be, right? So how do we address those things? Most people, when they cook out, what do? You got the music on. You know what I'm saying? Have you guys studied those things?
Yeah,
I mean, I don't disagree with trying to utilize more land, but by the same token, I think we also need to look at the human aspect of things and how it would impact them. And you know what I'm saying? When you buy your house, it's like, okay, this is like my castle, I'm good here. But if you get one where and let's assume that we were to recommend this go forth or whatever. 5 feet and 5 feet now, and one neighbor is one of those guys that, he doesn't really, his total disregard for everybody else. So you potentially could have, some social issues that could come up. And that's why I'm asking if you guys have studied that aspect of things.
The whole thought process on this is that today, what can happen is the following. In other words, it's in this blue section, and I'm sure that you look at all the older sections and some of the existing subdivisions, you can have the accessory structures to be right next to each other. So today, you can have it 2.5 feet, 2.5 feet. I can tell you that as a builder, in other words, as I'm planning my homes today, I'm gonna build a home that's gonna have this. In other words, when I build my homes, I'm gonna build them. I'm gonna give them their 20-foot backyard. I'm gonna give them their side yards. In other words, I'm gonna build it like this. But what's happening right now is that people on the weekends are going out there and building the structures, they're building it all the way up to the fence. They're doing all kinds of stuff that, and they're not applying for the permits because they don't have, in other words, the likelihood that they're gonna get their permit is slim to none. So by allowing them the opportunity to, when they go and do their construction, to allow them to utilize, to attach to the building, it's not gonna be rampant. In other words, it's kinda like if you look at some of the subdivisions in the aerials, you'll see this today. That they've done it without a permit and it's existing. So,
But that sounds more like an enforcement issue.
well, the whole.
I mean, that's
the whole-
really what we're talking about there.
If
I
may-
mean, you know, that's really what we're
And
talking
what
about.
we're doing is, we tag them, you know, we give them a stop work, we send them to, you know, to go to court, and that's when they start, that's when we started having this conversation.
Yeah,
Right.
and that-
But I guess what I'm saying,
Okay.
Osmo, if I may.
Sure.
Is that today, they can do this legally. In other words, today they can do this legally, and the structures are 2.5 feet from each other.
Right.
In other words, it's like, back here, you're gonna, and you have in certain areas.
Yeah, but let's put things in perspective. How many housing units do we have in Laredo right now?
70-some odd thousand?
Probably somewhere in there. So what
Yeah.
percentage of housing units have this situation? Probably less than 1%. So you put things in perspective, you talk about 1% of the population, okay? And I agree. I mean, yes, there are gonna be residents where you do have, you know, auxiliary structures back to back, but like I said, it's probably 1%. You're gonna have another percentage that has palapas, that also probably are encroaching in right of ways. There's gonna be a lot of areas that you're gonna have situations, like you just mentioned. These people just added and nobody knew about it. And they'll get caught when the appraisal district runs the aerials again, but that becomes a tax issue. There are issues there, I agree. Now, the question that I really have, my concern, like I said, is more like the social aspect of this thing. Allowing residents to be there with very minimal backyard space for either kids to play, dogs back there. You know what I'm saying? There's all kinds of things that come into play.
Well, that.
Okay?
that
But let
is-
me recognize a couple of the commissioners right now, because I know that they have some comment. Go ahead.
So at this point, under the current ordinance, on
You can do the green.
on an additional added structure, how many feet are you supposed to be from the wall or the line, property line?
2.5 feet.
2.5.
Yeah, so today, somebody, in other words, it starts like this, because that's, in other words, no builder is gonna, their young families, have their children and all that other stuff, as they get older, they say, I don't want that backyard, throw all 100% concrete, I mean, you know, all kinds of stuff going on. So somebody wants to add to their property, then they can do this. So when they do this, they're 2.5 feet from their property line, 5 feet away from their neighbor. The accessory building in the back is 2.5 feet, potentially 2.5 feet from the neighbor if they do that. The recommended proposed ordinance cleans it up by saying you can no longer get to 2.5 feet. Now you're in. So you're automatically 10 feet away from your neighbor. And if you're gonna do this on an existing subdivision, then you have to pull a survey, a more detailed survey. And if you have power lines in the back and that kind of stuff, they're not even gonna be able to get that close. And it becomes, when they apply for their building permit and they bring their survey, they say, oh, no, you got a power pole, you gotta stay 12 feet away. You know, there's, all those things will come into play at the building permit stage. And it gives the homeowners more opportunity to work with their land by attaching to their existing structure where they didn't have that possibility in the past.
So under this new ordinance, could they attach from the existing structure to the far back living quarters as far as staying in their home?
Yes,
So which would then alleviate the amount of backyard space.
right, which they're limiting the backyard space here also.
Well, yeah, but more than likely that's gonna be used as a social, more so of a.
Open space.
Open space, but now when you're cutting down the actual backyard space, that's where I think you're gonna have more of a noise issue. You're gonna be very close to your backyard, you lose kind of sort of the privacy of what your whole aspect of having a backyard is. I mean, when you're literally, you know, that close to your neighbor. I mean, when you think about the side access, I mean, it's minimum 5 feet. I mean, you're literally kissing your neighbor on the side. Now to have that same amount of space on the backyard, I think, you know, in aspect, it's just too close for comfort, in my opinion. To allow that, I think what we need is a proper buffer. Even at that, not everybody's gonna do a structure such as
Yeah,
that,
not
but,
everybody's.
but we're
There are
sort
gonna be
of,
few structures, but
we're sort of conforming
people
to
that
those who are
apply.
breaking the rules, you know, so why make it accessible for everybody not to do it, is basically what we're gonna do.
Wait, just before you go, let me recognize Commissioner Flores.
I guess my question is, where did this need come from to make these changes? What triggered
it was-
it?
Go ahead.
Basically, what was going on is that this enforcement that we're talking about. We'll go tag them, they, you know, they already built it, we're asking them to demolish, okay? And most of the time, they rather ask for a variance and them going to the Board of Adjustments. The Board of Adjustments, pretty much, you know, if you pay, they look at it, if it's no nuisance, they accept it, and so then it stays like that. And so now we have a situation where this guy has it and the other guy doesn't, so he wants to build it. And so they come get a permit, no, you can't, because you have a utilities permit or you gotta abide by the current rules. So what do? End up doing it at night, on the weekend, when there's, you know, ambiance. So then we go by, tag it, and go through the same process. And so when we started talking to, and then they started calling council told us, well, why can't they build it? It's their property, they should be allowed to build it as much as they can. So, and the same thing happened with the carports up to the front. They build a carport, they could only go 10 feet, half of the 20 feet. And so, but then instead of stopping at that point, they go all the way to the front. Why? They had a car garage, they enclosed it, so now they put the cars, and so they no longer fit because they want to put two cars in there back to back. So they end up running all the way to the property. We catch them, same story.
So did the initial request to look at the issue come from a council member, or did the initial request to look into matter come from the enforcement department?
Oh, no, it didn't come from us, it came from council.
Yeah,
I
So
requested
so
it.
it wasn't an issue where the enforcement department was
No.
overwhelmed with these issues?
No,
And, hey, city council, please give us guidance?
Not at all. It was-
Okay, so now, of the city councilman that did this, was it because there was a particular constituent that wanted this change? Or
There were
was
several.
it, okay, so several constituents, okay, do you know how many there were?
Well, I can think of three.
3 of them, okay, all right. So we're gonna do okay, go ahead. Now, let me ask you this question. How does this work moving forward, like in new subdivisions? Does it have an effect on that?
Okay, I'd just like to add.
That's when the TRB got involved, and they started looking at
If
the
I
various
may,
options.
if I may add to some of the comments that Mr. Pinzon said, it was initiated by Vidal, and in talking to guys like Charlie San Miguel, and when the whole issue was being brought up for discussion on the ordinance, San Miguel cited some existing, like condominium regimes that are detached, that said, yes, in other words, it works to have higher density in the subdivisions. When you talk to councilmen like George Altgeld, he says, I'd like to have as few setbacks as possible. So the direction from the council, at least those three council people, was that they wanted to give the families more use of their property, and potentially it increases the tax base for the city. So it was a twofold deal.
So how about moving forward?
So moving forward, on new plats would be the same thing as the existing plats. The only difference would be to allow to get to 10 feet in the front. If you look at the current land development code, it's littered with exceptions to get to 10 feet from the property line. I mean, there's at least 10 or 15, even on the chart that Mr. Bison will show you. It's got a lot of areas, in some cases where it's 8 feet. So basically, the 10-foot setback on the building area in the front is so that people, when they're trying to do plats, if you're trying to apply for a 10-foot building setback, then they're gonna throw all kinds of other, things at you, so nobody applies for it. In other words, It is, it's kind of like, you apply for something, but then, you know, you get asked for so many other things that forget it, ni para qué hacerlo. So on new plants, this would be, the only difference between existing and new is the 10 feet in the front. And if you notice, all corners have a 10-foot building setback on the corners. So it's consistent with the visibility down the street. So on the corners, you can't get any closer than 10 feet. So now, when you're looking at the front loads, with the exception of the corners, then you'll have the 10 feet. On the corners, we're not suggesting to alter any of that stuff, other than the back, so that you're always maintaining that visibility triangle as you're approaching, the corner. So even on the proposed, we're not on the proposed section for existing, we're not altering, so that we still maintain that visibility out here. So if you own a corner, you can only add to the back.
So let me ask you this,
Yes, sir.
so you're saying that moving forward, what you're gonna do is you're gonna be able to add more to the house in the front by 10 feet, is that right?
10 feet, that's
10
right.
feet, okay. Now, is that gonna result in, more expensive homes, or will the homes stay the same price?
Well, what it does is, typically, the more square footage that you have, you spread out, so if, let's say the home site, depending on where you buy, right? You buy in South Laredo, 35, you buy in North Laredo, 80,000. So if you can build, 500 more square feet on that lot, then yes, the cost of acquisition for the home site is gonna be less per square foot, because you're allocating that fixed cost over more square footage. So you're doing the marginal cost. For example, like if you got a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, well, the 2 baths gets, if you only build 1,000 square feet, and if it's 20,000 to build a bath, well, it's $20 a foot just for the bath. But if you're building 1,500, well, now the cost per square foot went down, because you're only adding living area.
But, so would that apply then to the 10 feet, or would the 10 feet just be additional expense?
No,
In
no,
other words, you're not able to offset the additional.
What I'm saying is
city-
the marginal
household.
cost.
No, I understood.
Obviously, if you're adding 100 square feet more of building area, it's gonna cost more. But now, in other words, for example, if somebody comes to me today on one of these lots, I can only build them a 1,600 square foot, 2-car garage home. Maybe I can build them a 1,700 square foot, or if they're not so concerned with their backyard, and it's somebody that wants less backyard, now I can go to 1,700 square foot, single story, as opposed to having to go vertical. A lot of people want single stories.
And will the buyer have that option? Will they have the option to say, you know what, I want it to be under the old way, which is
Yes,
the
yes.
20-foot setback?
Yes, all this does is it gives the designer more opportunity to design and less restrictions, and it cleans up the perimeter of the property post, initial home.
Commissioner O'Gara?
I just have a question or an observation. So the way it is now, they can do a building, concrete, and
The way it is now,
enclosed, right? Enclosed?
this is the way it is now.
Yeah.
That's it.
No,
That's-
but
that's
if they were
like-
to add, if they
Oh, okay, the green.
were to add the
Oh.
additional structure to the house,
Yes.
is that enclosed or is it, Open.
This building is
Could be.
enclosed.
it could be
What?
both?
Yeah, this could be enclosed, right there, so long as it's
Can-
detached by 5 feet.
Okay,
And then the sides could be open. So the enclosed structure, if somebody has a gazebo in the back and they're throwing a carne asada, they're 2.5 feet away from their
right.
neighbor.
So with the proposal, you're adding 2.5 feet more.
No,
Well, because
yes, yes,
if you
yes,
were to
we're
shift this down,
yeah,
your setback would be 7.5. So why not have a 7.5 instead of 5?
you all can propose that.
Because that way you have
This is a recommendation from the TRB.
more space.
Yeah, this is a recommendation from the TRB, obviously, and that's, we set a special meeting for 2 weeks from today based on what you all recommend.
Staff have an opinion on this?
We have a number of questions. This is the first time that we've seen the ordinance in this format. We were just wondering, between the accessory structure in order to be considered an accessory, if it's enclosed, our understanding was that there had to be a separation distance between the two structures of 10 feet. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is it 5? Between an enclosed structure?
Well, I guess let's do this. What is the definition right now of an accessory structure?
It's the definition of accessory structure is.
Is it enclosed, is not?
Yeah, it's incident to the, it's, in other words, it's an.
How is it defined right now in the land development code? I mean, because I think that's one of the things that,
It's defined as not primary use, in other
Well,
words, primary use, so it's
exactly, but-
accessory, right.
but
It's
you
not
see
the
what I'm
primary
saying
use.
now? There is a definition for that,
Yeah, we're looking at it.
and let's see what that definition is, because I think that would help the commissioners understand what an accessory structure is.
Yeah, and the accessory structures, normally we're talking,
It's a storage shed.
as you all have pointed out, that it is normally, especially one that large, would be a palapa, right, open. I'm wondering if, you have an enclosed or attached or part of the principal home itself. Are we limiting the height?
Yeah.
Are we gonna have two-story houses? So my neighbor in the back will have a two-story house, 5 foot behind my back fence. I mean, if I wanna have a yard, how does that affect me? That, it sort of eliminates.
I think the
You would have this person sort of, 5 feet but behind your back fence to have a two-story structure or, whatever, 3-story, sort of a looming structure right behind your back fence. That's, and also I'm wondering, how do you opt out? If I wanna have a yard or live in a neighborhood where I'm not,
Yeah.
where my neighbor doesn't have the opportunity to do that.
Right.
Where's
Yeah,
that mechanism?
The mechanism is in the, and that was part of there was a lot of discussion on that, is that typically subdivisions have deed restrictions.
Which
so-
we don't enforce. Which the
Right,
city doesn't enforce.
Right.
So it would be incumbent upon the
HOA.
private individual,
or the HOA.
to enforce those.
Right. So in other words, there's active HOAs, there's inactive HOAs, like if you go to the San Isidro area, it's an active HOA. So if you're trying to do something that's outside of the deed restrictions, you're active HOA. So from a consumer standpoint, as you mentioned, if you're concerned with those things, well,
But so
then,
you would have to buy a house with an active HOA and pay HOA fees in order to not be subject to not having, that backyard buffer.
If I may ask, I think the people that do these extensions because they have an, extended family that, they need more living space, right? And you have a family of 5 or 6 living in 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms, it's not enough, so they keep adding on to them, so I've seen them firsthand. I think we should reach a compromise. I do believe we do need more living space and the small amount of space that they have available right now to construct, but I think 5 feet or 10 feet from side to side or neighbor to neighbor is too narrow.
I mean, so I'll restate what I said. In other words, this is a recommendation from TRB. So P&Z has their own
Because
recommendation.
by extending it to the 7.5, you could possibly add 1 more bedroom back there,
Yes,
right? And that's,
yes,
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
yes. Oh, that's fine.
I asked to put that on the screen because what I understand is that the councilman, they actually directed building department to try to find a solution for the residents of existing houses to be able to build a palapa and maybe contemplate the idea of building a carport in the front. The carport being usually open if it's within the 20 feet. In the back section, probably a palapa so they could enjoy a carne asada or so on, maybe a party. And I think the purpose of bringing this for the existing residents, now it went into the developers, not you, Mr. Reese, but somebody else, see, that are gonna take advantage of, now we have 5 feet around, see? And that's the type of house that we're gonna have, because legally, if if it's approved by city council that we have 5 feet all around, then we're gonna have houses that are gonna be legally all the way to the 5 feet setback. Now, that creates a problem, and it might create a benefit for somebody that is desperate to buy a house. They will buy it, it's 5 feet, that's fine, that's all I can afford. But if we keep it on 20 feet setback, and we keep the front also on 20 feet, then we can allow for the resident to go and ask for a permit and build what the councilman actually wanted to be intended, a palapa and maybe a carport. Not a whole subdivision that is built all the way to the 5 foot setbacks, because then that creates a problem, like Vanessa was mentioning, see? It creates tension in between, you got 5 feet, you can't even go outside, see? So I personally think that we should leave the 20 feet and try to integrate the wording, Mr. Pinzon, for a palapa that is now permitted and inspected by the city of Laredo. But we're giving a tool to the developers that they can get instead of 1,400 square feet, now they're gonna build in 2,000. What are they gonna do now? If you notice on that, don't take it off, Mr. Ruiz, I'm just
Oh,
gonna
I'm
be
sorry.
real
Yeah, go
brief
ahead.
on it.
All I was
If
gonna
you
say-
notice on that, what we're gonna have now, we're gonna have an enclosed garage on the front, no green spaces because the vehicles are gonna be parked on the side. So what we're trying to do, we're gonna create a good neighborhood.
Yeah.
Good plating, and that's not good plating. See, to me, that's trying to push families in a subdivision just because we can make it cheaper. That's my opinion.
And originally, what we proposed to the TRB was a completely detached building.
Yes, sir.
And we allow those setbacks to 5 feet, but it was a complete different setback, it just evolved into.
And Mr. Pinzon, you just went through a certification or try to get it. And this is something that you saw. One of the things that you need to look as a building official, see, is to look for the well-being of the resident. And if you were instructed by city council to provide the mechanism to get the inspection and permits for a palapa, that's not a palapa, I mean, that's building all the way to the 5 foot setback.
We discussed it, the whole argument that we had through a TRB and with the councilman, that we were targeting, as much, it was mostly the carport that we were discussing and not necessarily the back. The back came about, no, I want them to allow to use up their whole property as possible, but we kept it as a palapa in the back, detached. Okay? And the
Let me mention one
TRB
thing, and I'm gonna interrupt you. Councilmen, they move out.
Yeah.
We move out. And the rules that we allow stay. And the ones that are affected are the residents, see? So we need to make good decisions right now. Because I might not be here tomorrow, and the councilman that wants to do the setbacks or the permitting for the palapas, he might not be here tomorrow. And then we end up with something for the residents that are gonna be attached to the rest of their lives, because these are not, this doesn't change, see? So we need to be very careful what we bring before planning and zoning.
Mr. Dominguez,
Yes, sir.
if I understood your comments, then we don't need to change anything.
That's correct, sir.
In other words, the existing ordinance today allows it more aggressive to be able to go closer to the back property line, with the structure, so long as it's 5 feet away from the existing property.
Actually, what the councilman said, we need to allow people to build. It's like when you contaminate.
To build
See,
what?
when you contaminate, this is gonna be a good example,
Yeah.
see? You are allowed to contaminate with permit. Every time we build a road, we're contaminating that road. But we have permit, see? It was permitted and it was inspected. Is it good? It's not good. So what he's saying is, let's go ahead and get the people to build, to use their spaces. Am I wrong, Pinzon? Use their spaces appropriately, so the structures are built sound, nice, pretty, so they can enjoy it, but with inspection. So we leave the setbacks the way they are, but now we're gonna allow the people to come before building department.
They can do that today.
That looks
In other words, today, they can do all this. Today they can. do
without
all
a
this.
permit, because they come back and they
Yeah,
find.
but they
them
can, they
with a
can do
permit.
all this stuff, with a, you know, with a permit.
Then we need to get together with the councilman and explain them that the request is not
But they
appropriate.
can't have more additional living area back there. So with this
Make it as
proposed,
They
Yeah.
cannot?
no, because it's an accessory building.
But
In other words,
I just
this-
asked
this-
if that was enclosed, and if it's
Yeah,
enclosed, then you could have,
but it's not a living area, it's an accessory building, it's accessory use.
but they're not using it for accessory.
All right,
use.
let's, did y'all get the definition of
Oh.
accessory building?
They're not-
Let's get the
but they're
definition.
not using it.
It's in
That's-
the land
so
development code.
This fixes, this fixes that and it puts the structures, now if you're saying 7.5 feet, if it's saying 10 feet,
That's the equivalent of that, right?
Go ahead.
right now it's basically the equivalent, but, well, it's more aggressive by 2.5 feet as you noted.
Yeah.
So maybe if you push it 2.5 feet further back, it's the same, but at least now they're contained within that, you know,
Right.
and you're keeping the buffer a little bit more.
Okay.
Okay,
Let's, let's get the definition, so everybody knows what the definition
The
is.
definition per the appendix in the land development code is an accessory use or structure shall mean a use or structure on the same lot with and of a nature customarily incidental and subordinate to the principal use or structure.
Subordinate.
Okay, can I make a comment? Is that the end of the definition?
Yeah, that's the definition from the land development code.
All right.
The thing I like about the current system is that there is some accountability as to how the landowner is going to use the property. Whereas what I understand from what you're proposing, that they're not. In other words, there is not gonna be some permit they have to get.
No, they do have.
There is gonna be a permit.
Yes, they have to
Okay.
get a permit,
Okay,
yes,
all right, so there'll be
absolutely.
a permit, okay, all
Yes.
right, okay, so that was the main thing that I was concerned about. Second thing is, what is going to be the effect on a neighborhood where you have some homes that are built up beyond the, the additional 10 feet or up to the 5 feet
Up to the 5 feet,
versus others that are not? Will that have an effect, a detrimental effect on the neighborhood in terms of property values? Because that's, I think to me, the concern, the tension is always the needs of an individual versus the needs of everyone else, right? And so my thought is if we think that it's going to depress property values, then we have to vote against it. Because, I mean, that's not smart planning.
I think the wording that needs to be added, that it is a single detached building and not attached. And so that way it continues to be a carport or palapa and not necessarily a continuation of the living area. And that's how we've been proposing it, except it just evolved into this.
How can I reduce this, Mr. Pearson?
What do you?
I wanna reduce,
That's the whole point. Is that it?
right now, under the current development, you can have a corner, let's say this is a corner right here. How can we make it smaller? Oh, there we go. Is that the smallest it gets? Okay, right now, you can plan a subdivision, and you can have you've got the 20-foot building setback here, you've got a 10-foot building setback here, and then a 20-foot building setback here. So you can have basically a structure, and you'll have 5 feet from here, and then you'll have your 20 feet back here.
That was as far as.
It's as far as it goes. So this is like, let's say this is lot number 1, 2, and we'll call this lot number 3. So this happens in more than one occasion on existing new subdivisions today, to where this structure here is, 30 feet basically, or you've got a 20-foot building setback in the back.
Okay. And then my last comment is, and I'm gonna vote against the recommendation. And the last reason is that I really have an issue with the fact that this is not coming from the enforcement department saying, hey, we're overwhelmed with these things and this is a real problem, versus 3 constituents of one city councilman saying, hey, can you do us a favor and, revise an ordinance so that we can do what we want on our individual properties? So to me, I just think that's not a reasonable reason or purpose for coming and rewriting an entire ordinance, or parts of an entire ordinance, to benefit three people. So I'm gonna vote against it for those reasons.
Okay. Commissioner?
I guess two of the concerns I have is, I mean, we currently have setbacks set for auxiliary structures, which is the main issue here, is the fact that people are building structures without getting permits. So we're trying to find ways to alleviate that issue. However, what's concerning is the fact that if we do this ordinance, you now also have the option to extend your current living space all the way up to 5 feet, or start building new subdivisions with these sort of restrictions. Now, what is the fire risk as far as now having less setback in between homes?
Fire department, my understanding was that Chief Landing was okay with the 5 feet around the perimeter.
And that's where the 5-foot setback comes in.
So, like I said, I mean, I guess with the auxiliary building being entertainment area, you still have the buffer. But now having a living space that actually takes up the whole property and now only leaves you with 5 feet. Now that's just such a limited space, and now that limited space is actually being used for entertainment. So now really they're gonna put their barbecue
They
pit there.
won't use it for
Well,
entertainment.
I know, but we don't know that. The thing is, people don't follow rules as it is now. Now with limited space, you're gonna have people not following the rules. And I can just see this being detrimental, I can see having issues. I mean, 5 feet is just too small. We're gonna have people adding, the structure to their living space or having, smaller backyards. I know I wouldn't wanna have a neighbor that would be that close to me on the backyard end. But I just can't see the benefit of doing this. I understand that people do need more space, but I think we have ordinances and rules for a reason. If people can't follow that, we need to fix it, but to conform to that or to their sort of behavior is not the problem or the solution.
Okay. Anything else you guys would like to add?
Just the only additional comment is that all across the United States, higher density is been the approach to address the housing cost. So what this does is it allows you to have higher density on the property. So
But it's all going vertical, so it's
yeah.
not.
So
that's-
but not everybody wants vertical.
Okay, but, and I can appreciate that, and that may be you may be absolutely 100% right. Problem is, can we see those studies? Can we see what are like, for instance, just because one city opts to have higher density, doesn't mean that with that doesn't come certain standards on how the buildings are gonna be built, things like that. So it's not just, and you may be right, and maybe we need to bring this back once we have additional information. But, I mean, we really don't have any information,
Yeah, we
really,
need
other than
better
a suggestion.
Yeah, really, the other thing we don't have is, we don't have any data from planning. We need to look at this thing also from the planning point of view. How do other cities look at this from planning communities, okay?
Yeah, well,
There's
my
no data
understanding-
that y'all brought on that. I did ask the last time that one was here, they said, hey, get a study on, how this, reduced setback would impact,
Economic.
the well-being of individuals. I said, because, studies have proven that, when you go to higher densities, you do have,
Yeah, those
more
are like
problems.
those are like projects. I think that the studies that have.
well, but it's the same thing that we're talking about here. What's gonna differentiate? A housing project
Well, housing
or a
project is no-
subdivision?
yeah,
Is it like
yeah.
the quality of life differs? You know what I'm saying?
It differs from an ownership standpoint. When there's no ownership, there's
I think in the
high density,
housing,
no ownership, creates social imbalances.
well, but I
Here,
think
you've
that
got
can
a
be
ownership.
addressed also by management. If you have good management of your properties, you should not have those problems.
Yeah, and
I'm not gonna have
let me
any
just add this, I think, listen, I think that we are, as a commission, very open-minded to change, okay? I mean, I think the issue's not that we're against change, I think
We make that
it's
as
just,
different
it's
decisions.
just smart change, and
That's-
change that's well thought out.
Yeah.
And provided with all the information to answer the questions that we have. And no offense to you all, I'm not attacking you all, I'm just saying, I mean, that's a big difference of 10 feet for people, or 20, 15, what is it, 15 feet, 10 feet?
What?
They're gonna go 10.
20
10,
20 to
yeah,
5.
Water wall, from water
Yeah,
wall.
10,
to-
yeah.
There'll be 10 feet in between
yeah.
residents.
Yeah, and so, I mean, without knowing the impact of that, I I mean, it's hard to make a choice, you know?
Yeah,
So we're making a
I
decision
can't,
based on assumptions.
I can't take it on someone's word that that's not gonna have an impact.
yeah.
I mean, how do we know it's not gonna have an impact?
What's happening today?
Well, I understand that,
Yeah,
but what's the
that's-
percentage of,
I
but that's the
think,
thing.
like I said, it's based on, you know, if you take the number of units that we have and the problems that you've had, it's less than 1%. So to say, you know, we have a problem because 1% of the population doesn't follow rules, but 99% now are gonna be subjected to new rules,
Yeah.
that doesn't make a lot of
Not
sense.
good policymaking.
You know, when you're trying to make, I think the key here is, it's like Commissioner Flores says, we're not against change, but we need to have data that we can, you know, say, hey, we have data that can substantiate some of these changes that are being proposed. But right now, I think all of us have doubts on what is being presented.
And I'm somewhat for it, but.
You know, there's doubts here. There is no real substance in terms of how these things are gonna impact quality of life.
So if they were to ask me, why did you vote on that change? What am I gonna tell them? Because they say that 3 people out there wanted to have more living space, and because some people were,
I don't think it was that, the communication from council was that they wanted for people to be able to have more use of their property. There was a consultant that came down here that was brought in by what is it,
Mario Peña.
Yeah, Mario Peña, the architects. And what he was proposing was that what's happening is that as you have your sprawl, in other words, it costs the city a lot more money to be able to manage, you know, the lower density than it is to have higher density. And he had this chart that he proposed in there where there's, in other words, where you're able to tax more of the property, basically. And by being able to provide living space in there, that living space gets taxed and the property owner has more use of their property. In other words, it gives them more options. The likelihood that 100% of the people are gonna do this is slim to none, I can tell you. But it gives
But it could present a problem because this is for existing dwellings. So if somebody decides to build, and we assume this thing got passed, and my neighbor decides that he wants to extend his property all the way to 5 feet from my house, that's gonna be a hell of a problem for me,
And for everybody.
you know?
But you know what, but whether it's a problem for you should not be why we do it or don't do it.
Well, I
Because-
agree.
No,
I
the
agree.
reason that we should do it or not do it is because it's been studied, it's
Yeah.
been used in another city, the reason, the pros and the cons have been discussed and analyzed, and then we make an educated decision on whether or not it should happen or not because Mr. Villarreal doesn't want it to happen, or because I want it to happen, it should be because it's been researched.
Yeah, well, there's an article, a recent article on the Builder magazine where there's certain cities that are providing more additional structures in their backyards, and they're even using them as rentals. But I don't know, maybe those backyards are bigger, right? But there's a move towards higher density, you know, everywhere.
I think planning staff should have involvement in
Coach,
the research.
One quick comment.
Yes,
Mr.
go ahead.
Chairman, to finalize. We already have the ordinances for the condos, for the townhomes, for the mobile homes, for small lots. We have brought lots from 4,000 all the way to 3,000. We have even approved 2,200 or 2,400 square feet lots.
Yeah.
But as far as residences, we need to limit ourselves. We need to let the owner decide what they want to do with the setbacks, not us. I mean, let them buy, let them be the owner, and let them go ahead and handle, because that's what council wants. See, it's that Pinzon, what the councilmen want is for the owner to decide how he's gonna use the property.
Right.
So if he buys a property that's got 20 feet for the setback,
And not necessarily
back
living
in
area.
front, then let them handle that.
So-
If they want a condo, they can go to a condo. They want an apartment, they can go to an apartment.
There's mechanisms, that's what you're saying,
Yes, sir.
you know, for different types of living.
And that's what I can
Higher
say.
densities are, like townhomes exist, that's already there.
Even with apartments.
Condominium projects exist. HUDs exist, I mean, if you wanna go to that route. Now, I know what you're saying, and like Commissioner Flores said, this commission is not against change, but it has to be something that has been researched In other words, we all want to make the right decisions, I guess. You know, everybody wants to make sure that what we take forth is something that's very workable for everybody. And it's been proven somewhere. And, you know, the planning of this whole thing has been done.
Well, may I ask a question? Sure. Go ahead.
So one more question. So for apartments in R3, I'm gonna go from 20-foot setback to a 10-foot setback, right? Making-
Apartments have 10 feet, I think, on the perimeter, depending on the zoning. You have to maintain
R3.
25 feet in the front,
R-
and then it's 10 feet around the perimeter.
So R3 in the rear, I'll have 10 feet
10 feet.
in this proposal. So why not make it 5 feet? I can put more apartments.
Because the issue is this, that the council said residential, single family. And there was a directive to TRB, and they asked TRB to make a recommendation to council. So this is TRB's recommendation, so it has to go through you guys, and you guys make your own.
But then it's no longer residential, it's multifamily.
No, this is single family.
I know, but, I mean, you're making it so dense that why not just build the apartments and you have all the density you want at 5
There's
feet?
no ownership with apartments. There's a big difference between
Condos.
ownership and non-ownership. But I guess so I just want to ask a question before you guys, like, absolutely decide to scrap the whole deal.
We need more research.
Which is something that staff has been, I guess, unless I misunderstood staff, I mean, there was no issue with fire. We had utilities, we had AEP out there. There was no issues with AEP. Their concerns were that if you have some existing easements, which we're addressing them, that those get respected. So there's no concerns with fire, no concerns with utilities. So the question that I have for you all is, do you all have an objective to, on an existing plant, so let's scrap this, which is, I guess that's what I'm feeling, that there's no, there's a lot of discontent for the front porches in the front.
Can I respond?
And are you in
Let me
favor of
just
that or
hold
not
on.
in favor of that?
Okay, you're saying give us the opportunity to build a front porch or a carport?
Carport,
A carport, okay. Taking a carport all the way up to what, the property line?
the property line.
Hold on, let me think here. Now,
We had also looked into, not all the way to the property line, 5 feet before with an overhang. So that way they're not necessarily.
so if you basically go to 18 feet or 17 feet and have a 2.5 overhang, you're mostly accomplished to have that vehicle covered.
That's right, that's what.
So if we would go to 17,
Yeah,
that would give you, I mean, and I know what the problem has been.
Yeah, 2
10
cars.
feet is not gonna give you much coverage for anything.
one of the comments that we heard from one of the committee members was that when you're not allowing that column to go to the property line, then like if you're an interior lot and you want to do like a little circular, that column is in the middle of your of your way. That was one of the comments. So that's why the committee said, or one of the members that said, no, because I don't want to call them in the middle of my.
But the thing is, I guess if you allow the build all the way up to the property line, then your overhang's gonna go into the.
No, vertical.
No.
There's a
Property
vertical.
line limit.
Yeah, there's a
Okay, so then basically-
It's either you come,
You're gonna be 2.5 feet from the property line or 18 inches, based on what your overhang is.
You zero overhang, or set your column back with an overhang. There's a vertical. In the definitions that you all have before you, there's a definition for a vertical.
I'm not too sure it's scrapping the whole back. I mean, I do think we need.
I think what we may
Okay,
wanna
so-
do is,
Living space in the back, another bedroom.
Can we do 10 in the back?
Can I respond?
I'll feel comfortable with
Here's
that.
what I would ask. I mean,
Yes,
and
sir.
again, I have no control over what other people do right now, but what I would ask is, instead of having us vote right now, is providing us more information so that we can analyze it more completely. For instance, if you could provide us other cities that have done this, and see if there's any literature or anything that has been written about how to make what you're proposing to do work, so that we can analyze that and then come back and make a more informed decision. Because, I mean, I don't know how anyone else is gonna do it, but what they're gonna vote, but I can tell you that it seems like it's just, we're not ready. I feel like we're not ready to make a decision. It may be the most brilliant idea that it's gonna revolutionize Laredo for the next 50 years, but I don't know that right now, where I sit right now.
And yes, and I'll just make one comment. Today, unless I'm mistaken, you can build your fence all the way up to the, where can you build your fence up to?
In the front?
The front
The
property
front
line?
10 feet, they're at the same way. But then you could go down to
It
36.
depends on the subdivision homeowners association.
Well, yeah, that's
regulations.
different.
Most of them will only allow you to build to the edge of the structure, which is 20 feet. However, in the older parts of town, you're absolutely correct.
We could also
And it has a
provide you, Mr. Flores, is, research on the violations that we found, through the years, because this is only in the last 6 months or so.
Yeah.
On where this started from. And we could actually, go and look at the BOA, all the ones that have been
'Cause
approved.
I think the chairman made or maybe it was Mr. Ugalde, but I think someone here made the right question. It's like, how am I gonna explain to people why I voted for this? And
Well, what happens is this, the consumer, in other words, and maybe it's not gonna happen in the affluent, in the more affluent areas, but when you have the affordable, typically, the home is enclosed up to the 20 feet. Then once the family gets a little bit more, in other words, typically the family's net worth is from their home, right? So they go in there, they buy their home, they got a two-car pad, they buy what they can, instead of renting, they purchase their home. Then later they say, oh, I wanna protect my car. And because they can only build that covered patio up to 10 feet, they can't protect their car. So this allows the family, number one, to be able to cover and protect their vehicle, which is what they wanna do. And that's what's prompted this whole issue. And it's a lot more than 3 families. I mean, if you do aerials, you'll see it. I mean, you've been at the BOA, it's a lot.
I mean, the
It's not-
carport
it's not
situation,
something-
I
Yeah, that's
can
why-
attest to
That's
it.
why I asked, can you all consider the front porch issue, because it is.
Carport.
Yeah, the carport, I'm sorry. What did I say?
You said
The
the porch.
porch. Oh, the carport, yeah, carport.
Porches are allowed on the side.
I think the carport should be looked at the same way we're looking at the palapas on the back, as he was intended.
Well, the issue that we've had with carports, and I can speak from when I was in building,
Building.
it is a problem for people because of the 10-foot. I
Yes.
mean, and that's
It's
been going on for
years.
years.
It could be allowed, Mr. Chairman, provided that they can come with a little
No,
plan.
they have to come in and get a
Yeah,
permit.
they have to apply.
They have to come get a permit.
But once we approve it, see, I mean, anybody can build something in the front and it's approved, see?
Yeah, they
Even
can.
the developers, they can go ahead and sell the house with the condition they say, we'll come back and build a carport for you in the front, see? So that allows the developer more lead. I
I
personally.
think a lot of the front carport issue is one that is mostly in the inner city.
Yeah.
We've seen that in the inner city a lot.
And
Okay,
it,
the
and it,
older.
and it starts happening after, in other words, once the family has already gotten comfortable with their monthly payments, ya se acostumbraron, it's kind of like, I want to protect my,
I've seen that, and
So it gives them an opportunity to do that.
there's things here that have been going on too with climate change. We've had a lot more hailstorms in the past, you
Yeah,
know,
you gotta
and-
protect the car.
and your car's outside and it can be problematic.
let me ask you a question. If I wanna make a motion denying this or not.
Well, wait a minute, there's a
Table.
public hearing at this point.
Yeah.
I need to
We're
let
not
them
gonna-
finish their presentation. Are you guys finished
And
with
then
your presentation?
the other one, I wanted to see if you all would consider, instead of doing the 5 feet, maybe 10 feet, because I know that you mentioned 7.5 feet.
There-
And then, but still, in other words, but still removing the 2.5 feet around the perimeter as an option. In other words, they're gonna have to apply for it.
Well, at this
That's it.
point, this is a public hearing, and what's before us is what we're gonna have to, and we've listened to your presentation. If you have nothing else to add, we wanna thank you very much. Okay? This is a public hearing. Anybody else who wishes to speak in favor of this particular item? Anybody who wishes to speak against this particular item? All right, with nobody else wishing to speak. I know there's been several different, things discussed at the commission level. One of them is been more information is needed. Another one is, that was proposed, was just let us do the carport issue. I think, the best thing to do, and I don't know how the commission's gonna think, is we do need more information to be able to make a decision on something. And I think I would be willing to entertain a motion to table this item to give them a chance to provide and get more information on how either one of what they're proposing might work. But that's just a recommendation for me. It doesn't have to be. I will entertain any kind of a motion that the commission wishes to do.
I will make a motion to table the item. There's a lot of, data, information on setbacks, and it's more to your favor, just from what I researched. I think our comprehensive plan, the new one, also talks about eliminating some of the setbacks. You might wanna come back with some of those quotes and pinpoint that on the plan itself, to help your position. I'll make a motion to table the item.
I have a
for more
motion on the
research.
floor.
Yeah.
Do I have a second
I'll second the motion.
Hold on,
Sec-
I have a comment though.
on that discussion?
Before we vote. Okay, we want to table the item, but do we want to provide some instructions on what additional information we need as part of the motion, so that that way we're clear about what it is that we're asking for?
We can certainly
Because,
do
for
that.
instance, the suggestion by Raul here makes it seem like we'll just get some quotes from an article here and get some quotes from the comp plan there, and then that's all you're gonna need.
What is the
What I
suggestion?
want is if they've changed the setbacks to be the way they're proposing in another city,
Right.
then to show us what other things they did in order to ensure that it was workable for the community, for the neighborhood, things like that. No, it's not gonna be just enough to cut and paste, oh, here was this statement, here was that statement. I mean, it has to
We
be
need data.
clarity.
Yeah.
You're
we need-
assuming that they don't know how to research.
I'm not assuming it, I'm
No,
saying what kind
he's
of motion are
giving
we
the
going
motion
to put
clarity.
together that's
Yeah.
clear? I'm not talking about them, I'm talking about our
Yeah,
motion.
it just gives, and I think part of that would also involve from a planning aspect.
If by tabling, and this is for my information, Mr. Chairman, by tabling the motion, by tabling the item, are they gonna be able to bypass us and bring it before city council? Or they're gonna have to wait until they bring it back to us and we make the recommendation?
Yeah, that's the way it normally works. I mean, the commission
Because
should make a
it has
recommendation.
happened that before, when we don't act on it, they can go directly to city council, and little city
But I
council.
think council
So,
at that point will,
Maybe Raul can amend the motion, whereas to that, it's not being sent to city council until we make a recommendation through our.
I thought that was the understanding, it has to come back here once they
That
do the
is-
research.
Yeah.
It goes without saying.
It does need the recommendation of the planning and zoning commission in
before
order
it goes
to,
forward.
Yeah, that's-
to
yeah,
make
policy.
amendments to the land development.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
so I guess the motion then that you have, and would you consider
Yeah.
incorporating what he's?
Yes, incorporate with,
Would you also entertain a
Notice.
motion that, and not only would we look at other cities who might have something like this, but other cities that have planning aspects that might have utilized similar models in planning subdivisions?
I think we also need the feedback from the planning staff, they're the
Well,
the
that's,
experts.
that's part of why I'm adding that aspect to it.
Yes.
You in concurrence with that?
Yes, yes. That's my
I
motion.
second the modified motion.
Okay, so we have a second. All those in favor?
Is he modified, are you gonna modify it?
He modified
Yes,
his
I'm-
He
motion.
might refer it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Those against? Motion carries. Thank you all very much. Next item that we have is amending the City of Laredo Code of Ordinance, Chapter 25, entitled Plumbing, by adding a new definition and text, which new definition is certification of irrigation contractor, and any other matters incident here, there too. This is a public hearing. Who will be making this presentation?
Okay, you have an ordinance that was drafted, and again, the same thing, council asked us to go to the TRV for revising the irrigation problems that were created by overwatering of the various subdivisions. And so, in this case, we met with various contractors, irrigators, and looked at various options that there exist currently. And so one of the, we looked at the methods of watering by different devices, and then also we looked at where to place the your sprinkler systems. And so essentially, there's the two changes that are being brought about, other than making some grammar improvements, was that you would one, register the irrigators, make sure that they're registered annually, and that was corrected. And then the other one is that the if you mind going to the, there's no pages, but it would be the section 25-89 minimum standards, the design minimum standards, 25-90, okay, and where we would have 48 inches from the back of curve where you would install your sprinkler irrigation system. Okay, and that they have to conform to the U.S. EPA water sense specifications for low volume irrigation, high efficiency measure devices, and this was proposed by some of the irrigators after we looked at it. Okay, the drawing on this one is not here. I don't think it was included in your packet. To show, by allowing this 48 inches from the back curve, it prevent overspraying onto the streets and therefore not deteriorating some of the streets. That was the proposed of what it was look like. Various, we looked at, looking at different curves on the curve of the gutters onto the street, but we figured that the most of the deterioration is being caused by the overspraying of the irrigation systems.
So basically, in those 48 inches or 4 feet, what you're saying is that the type of system has to be used as sort of like a drip or a low flow.
It could be a drip, it could be, at first we were just leading up with a drip irrigation, but then one of the irrigators proposed that there are some that have heavier drops to prevent from overspraying and overflowing with, and so
Yeah, because
it's heavier, drops quicker onto the lawn.
to the road.
Yeah.
If I may add, for the record, Jesus Ruiz. In the existing ordinance, what happens on the existing ordinance, there's two things. Number one, if you're gonna be within 48 inches of the back of the curb, it has to be a drip system. Okay, so having it to be a drip system, it's not it's efficient, but it's not effective for the landscape that people are using. So what's happening is that they're putting those sprinkler heads at the property line, and guess where they're pointing? They're pointing towards the street. And when they're pointing towards the street, then you have over time, the water's jetting over into the street, as opposed to the way Tony described it. He says, when you want to do an irrigation system, you want to triangulate the water flow. So the proposed changes to the ordinance are that any new, if you're retrofitting more than 50%, then you need to conform to the more water efficient system. So 20 feet, the first 20 feet from the back of the curb on new construction now has to be the efficient systems. And those efficient systems throw heavier water. So you don't lose, in other words, it doesn't lose to evaporation, and the water is heavier, so it doesn't get pushed off with the wind. So that's one. The other thing is that on the islands. And also, when you see the medians and the subdivisions, you see the grass all the way up to the curb. So with the current proposed recommendations are that the first 4 feet, there's zero vegetation. So it either has to be xeriscape or some kind of sidewalk or something. So now, so it makes it to where the water is further away from the street. And then the final
But
thing.
that was a recommendation too, so that way.
Yeah.
Because obviously you're not gonna be able to water it, so therefore change your xeriscape or no water need required lawns. And so that was where
Yeah,
that
so-
option was given to them.
Yeah, no, what's happening is like on the medians, it's all green. So now you're gonna have to have some xeriscape, in there before you get zero vegetation. So that's one. The other part is there's a requirement now that the irrigator certify that he did things according to what he submitted. Whereas before, it was kind of like pushing the city to say, hey, you did it wrong, fix it. Now, the irrigator says, hey, I submitted the plans, and I did it according to the plans, and the city inspects. There's a
But that was
certification.
always the case. When the ordinance was in place, you had to submit your plans and they had to be approved by the city.
Yeah. Yes, but there was no certification by the irrigator that he did it according to plans. It was kind of like go inspect, find out if I did something.
Well, you're talking about certifying the one who's actually,
The irrigator. Yeah, the guy did the work. It
who
says
does that kind of certification?
He's gonna provide he's gonna
Because the
provide.
state doesn't do it,
he's
so who
gonna-
does it?
Well, he has to do it according to the
No,
code.
according to the plans, I get that, but you're saying certified, and I'm trying to figure out who does the certification of irrigators?
No, not certification by the irrigator. In other words, the irrigator says, I did it according to plans, the city.
I did my
goes and-
plans and the city approved them, and I'm gonna construct it according, well, that's always been the case. What's the difference now?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, real quick, I spoke to some of the irrigators, and they have a little concern on that. Because that kind of monopolizes by bringing a business that is gonna certify what they do.
There's no certification of the irrigators. In other words, the irrigator says, I did it according to what I was supposed to do.
attest that he did it according to.
That's already on plumbing. I spoke to Guerrero, that question, he said, well, actually, our main concern is not about the certification, it's about the runoff, and that damaging the streets. So, I completely agree with everything as far as as long as we have the City of Laredo inspector.
Oh, no, the inspection doesn't go away. It's just,
So why do we need the certification if we have the plans, the permit, and the inspection by the City of Laredo? Doesn't that impose a little bit more load on the irrigators? That's what the concern they had is on. And I think, and just to educate myself, I spoke to Mr. Guerrero. And he said, well, I'm the one inspecting that, so I don't let anything go by. So just that one, but as far as I know, but I'm telling you what I heard. So, I agree
that's
with
why I just
the,
scratched it off. In other words, I'm making you aware that was on the proposed changes. There was a new definition.
Yes, sir.
The new definition was that the guy's doing the work is certifying that he did it according to the plans, or if he modified the plans, that he submitted a new set of plans. In other words, if he found, but you can scratch it off. I mean,
It's really a moot issue, to be honest with you, because the plans have to be approved by the city and you have to construct according to plans. You deviate from the plans and the inspector, says, hey, you didn't do according to plans, that you just got stopped right there and you have to redo.
Chairman, I got a question.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I have a question on the section on reclaimed water.
Yeah, that's where I was going.
we didn't make any changes there. It was just the typos.
What was redlined?
This is new.
Our draft is
No,
redlined.
it was on there. It's the back part. It's the one where they were changing the spelling of,
So there was no changes to the reclaimed water section?
no, just, it was the spelling. Where is it? The reclaim, what page number, or?
That was after
This
that.
is, 2593.
Yeah, no, it was misspelled before, but I think when they did the change, they misspelled, recuperar, or I think it was a word,
Recuperation.
recuperation, yes.
Yeah, that was the only thing, there was a misspell on 5. It said, do
So,
not
I
drink
guess
and.
what has us confused is that the whole ordinance here is red line, is in red, which
Yeah.
means there's a change in the whole
It's a
thing.
typo, it was a
Yeah.
typo.
And it should just be wherever your change is.
I know.
Right, basically, maybe it's
So
because
just a
the type,
typo that you're trying to fix and not the whole
I know.
paragraph.
it was a format, I guess it picked it up as a format change more than any, here's the red line.
Or maybe it's the font
The
size.
Yeah, it's probably, that's what caused that. But really, it was.
Okay, thank y'all. Thank y'all. I think we got, this is a public hearing. Anybody who wishes to speak in favor of the change, in favor. Anybody who wishes to speak against change. If not, what are the wishes of the commission?
I would like to make a motion to approve and send the ordinance to city council, provided that we scratch that certification, for the irrigators. I don't see any issue on that. That's my motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those against, motion carries. Thank you. Next item is a public hearing and consideration of the following street closure. Is a public hearing and consideration of the street closure of Sherman Street between Vidauri and Santa Rita. All right, and who's making this presentation?
This is coming from community development.
I'm sorry?
Community development.
Okay.
Good evening, Planning and Zoning Commission. My name is Linda Teniente, Land Acquisition Manager for the City of Laredo. And what we bring before you is a permanent street closing request from Mr. Mike McBain. This is at the 1900 block of Sherman. And I'll put the map up so you can see where it's at. Is this on? Down?
No, that's fine. It's just,
Which way? Up, this way.
you can do it.
Okay. Then- Thank you.
It's actually like this.
Okay. Perfect, thank you. Okay, so there's several elements that must take place in order for a citizen to ask for a street closing. This is in accordance to the 1984 ordinance where there is a permanent street closing request made. The neighborhood that we're talking about, it's in the original land grant area that the city has, so that's the first element that we must meet. So I'm going to point to the property that Mr. McBain owns right now. It is a trucking company, and the purpose that he is requesting the street closure, it is to secure his, right now, he currently uses Sherman Street, or is in and out to his business. The abutting property land, it's LFD property, and they are in agreement for the street closure. So the ordinance requires that both property owners be in agreement to the street closure. At this point, we've taken it up all the way to the point where we've met with all the departments that are affected by this. We've done the appraisal, and now we bring it to the Planning and Zoning Commission for their authorization in order for this closing to proceed. Just for your information, it is in a M1 industrial zoning area. We did follow the handbook. It pertains to mainly section 2.02 of that handbook, where it is a non-thoroughfare and it is a dead-end street. So this is what one of the criteria where it is allowable to take place. We've noticed there are 2 easements that need to be taken care of, and it's an AEP easement, and they've only required that there be a pole there, and also an AT&T easement that they do want us to acknowledge that is in existence.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation.
You're welcome, sir. Mr. McBain, so I don't know if y'all want to ask him any questions. He's traveled in from out of town in case the commission wants to ask any questions.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Anybody who wishes to speak in favor of this,
Thank you for having me. I am Mr. McBain, and I do operate that warehouse on Vidalry Street. And as you know, the west side of Laredo and those blocks has been an industrial park for probably 40 years. I'm gonna say a lot of those buildings were built late 60s, early 70s. And we've been operating transloading in that neighborhood since 2002. That neighborhood is bordered by the Union Pacific Railroad on two sides, so just to operate in that neighborhood, you know, requires you to tolerate a lot of train traffic. And in the last, I'm gonna say 4 years or 5, there have been real estate transactions they've had 5 sales that's taken some parking away from our previous operations. So basically what we're doing now is parking trailers in Sherman Street, which is dirt. We bought that warehouse that was in the photograph in 2010, and we purchased Burnside Street on the north end in 2011 from the city, and we're applying to purchase Sherman Street today on the south end of the same warehouse, so that we can make an all-weather parking area of about 13,000 square feet for trailers.
Okay.
That's it.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing. Anybody who wishes to speak in favor? In favor. Anybody who wishes to speak against? Against. If not, what are the wishes of the commission?
I'll make a motion to close public hearing and approve the street closure of Sherman Street located between Vidalry and Santa Rita.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Tell you what, before we move on, I'd like to ask for a 5-minute recess. We all take a 5-minute recess?
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, we're back from recess. The next item that we have is review and consideration of the following vacating plats. There is a particular plat that an item we're going to move up. Commissioner Flores?
Hold on. I'm sorry, it's gonna be, I think, item 9C. Let's see, that's it, yeah. The issue is that we won't have quorum if I step out, and so we need to move the item up now because we have to table it.
Okay, so we have a motion to.
Make a motion to move 9C.
All right,
Second.
and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
So that'll be till the 20th of December?
well, now we need a motion because we're not gonna have a quorum
I'll make a
to
motion to table.
table.
Item 9C.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Yes, it'll be moved to the next meeting.
Item, unfortunately,
right?
yeah, item 9C, we're gonna have to
We
move it
want
to
to
the next
table it
meeting.
time certain.
It's gonna be specifically for the next meeting,
20th,
Time certain.
December
the
20th.
20th. Yeah, just because we had a situation here, we don't have a
Does it-
quorum.
Let me ask you a question, does it affect any timeline for the project? I mean, because do we need to have an emergency
Okay.
meeting or something?
You wanna approach Prodem, Mr. Ochoa?
You know, we should have brought it up earlier when we had the quorum, I apologize for that. I didn't realize that he was leaving.
Good evening, Edward Ochoa with CEC. I don't believe it'll affect our timeline because the preliminary plat was here last time for phase 3. And we got that approved, so that's gonna allow us to continue. We were just talking about that right now. I believe I'll be okay because that allows me to continue with our one-stop shop and everything. I think just a matter of getting it approved soon, so.
All right, thank you.
We're okay with that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Sorry about that.
All right, all right. All right, so the next item that we have is review and consideration of Los Presidentes East Master Plan. The intent is residential and commercial. All right.
Won't we,
Are we going back to 8A?
I'm sorry, I,
9A. Oh, 8A.
8A, I'm sorry, I missed a. Review and consideration of the following. Consider to vacate the plat of Landstar at NDHR as recorded in December 19, 2016. All right. The proposed action is approval. This is a 32.7 acre tract. And we're vacating this plat. Yes, sir. Come on up.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners on board. Ivan Morales for the record from BOA Consulting, and I'm here to represent my client, Scanwell Properties. and I concur with all your comments.
You concur? Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, wishes of the commission?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, next, now we go, review and consideration of Los Presidentes East Master Plan. The intent is residential and commercial. This is a 170-acre located west of Concord Hills Development and east of Cuatro Vientos Road. The zoning is zoning for this 185 lot development is AG R1, R1A, and B4.
Mr. Chairman, the applicant has requested this item be tabled time certain.
All right, then can we have a motion?
Motion to table the item.
Second?
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Those against? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item that we have is the review and consideration of Fairview subdivision master plan. The intent is residential and commercial. This is a 249.29 acre tract located northeast of I-35 frontage and south of San Isidro Parkway. This zoning for this 467 lot development is B4. The tract is located in District 6, Nelly, Bielma, which is District 5.
That's incorrect.
So that's incorrect. But that's irrelevant. Proposed action is approved subject to the following comments from planning and traffic safety, parks and leisure, and a notice to developer from planning. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, planning wishes to amend our planning comment number 3 to add a comment, a comma at the end and add the words or other alternative as recommended by staff.
Okay, now, let me see if I understand. The current comment says there are existing plats on this property?
Yeah,
We'll need to vacate the existing plats or replat the entire property.
correct.
And you wish to,
We wish to amend it to include the clause or other alternative as recommended by staff.
To the first sentence or the second?
To the
to the
second,
end.
The very
To
end.
the end.
the very
To the
end of will need.
All right. Okay, yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Ricardo Villarreal, Howland Engineering, representing the client. We had discussions with planning, so we're okay with those comments. There's one more, we did speak to traffic safety on their comments. If we can deal with their comments at the one-stop shop. And, cause sometimes they put comments that we're afraid that if they get approved by planning and zoning, we have to do that.
Sure.
But that gets taken care of at one-stop shop. So if there can be some type of clause that we'll look into these things, and if at one-stop shop they apply, we'll go ahead and put them in to the plans. If they don't, they kind of get struck out.
I'll tell you what we'll do. Let me ask the traffic department to come up here.
Good evening, Robert Peña, Traffic Department. I did speak with Mr. Villarreal. We're in agreement with
Okay.
the comments and working together at the one stop.
Very good, thank you.
So we're gonna delete all the comments,
No, I think he wants language that says that the comments by the traffic department will be addressed at the one-stop shop.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And if they're not resolved, they remain.
Yeah, we'll get it done. They're so technical that it's,
Yeah,
so
Okay.
this is probably not the forum to discuss that.
I agree. I agree.
Just for clarification, so all the comments will be subject to,
From traffic,
all the traffic's comments?
yes. Yeah, they can be resolved at one stop. Okay,
And other than that, we agree with,
You agree?
with the rest of the comments. And if
Okay.
you all have any questions, here to answer.
any questions from the commission? No questions, thank you very much. What are the wishes of the commission?
I'll make a motion to approve according to comments.
Have a-
Delete- Deleting, traffic and.
Well, not deleting, adding the language that it will be resolved at
Yes.
the one-stop shop.
Yes. Adding the language that it would be, arranged at the, one-stop shop. That's the,
That's motion. Second, and a second, all those in favor?
aye.
All right, motion carries, thank you. Okay. Next item is review and reconsideration of the revision of the new trade center, well, I'm sorry, that's the one, we tabled that.
9D.
That's 9D now. Review and reconsideration of the Kaledi Industrial Park Master Plan. The intent is industrial.
they're no update.
And the proposed action is approved subject to the following comments from planning and from engineering.
Yes, Arturo Arces,
Yes.
Mejia Engineering, and we concur with all the staff comments 1 through 6 to the master plan.
1 through 6 from planning and also from engineering. Define the phases.
Yes.
And, okay, notice to developer. Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you. What are the wishes of the commission?
I'll make a motion to approve, subject to the following comments.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. The next item is preliminary consideration of the plat of Calady Industrial Park Phase 2. The intent is industrial. This is a 41.05 acre tract located west of I-35 and north of Bob Bullock Loop. The proposed action is approved subject to the following comments from planning and a notice to developer.
Yes, again, Arturo Arces, Mejia Engineering, in regard to the phase 2 plat, we concur with comment 1 and 2 from staff.
Okay, very good. What are the wishes of the commission?
Make a motion to approve subject to the following comments.
Second?
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries. Thank you. The next item is preliminary consideration of the plat of FedEx Freight Laredo. The intent is a distribution facility, is a 61.4 acre tract located west of I-35 and east of Mercury Drive. This is a 3-lot. The zoning for this 3-lot development is M1. Proposed action is approved subject to the following comments from planning, from engineering, and a notice to developer.
Ivan Morales again from Bell Consulting, representing my client, and we do concur with all your comments.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the commission? No? What are the wishes of the commission?
Motion to approve subject to the comments.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. The next item is preliminary consideration of the plat of EMTZ. The intent is industrial. This is a 4.5 acre tract located south of FM 1472 and west of FM 3338. The proposed action is approved subject to the following comments from planning, from fire, and a notice to developer.
Good evening, I'm Daniel Gomez, the project engineer for this project, and we concur with all of the comments.
Okay? Any questions for the engineer? Not, what are the wishes of the commission?
I'll make a motion to approve, subject to the following comments.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. The next item is preliminary reconsideration of the plat of El Eden subdivision, Unit 11. The intent is residential. This is a 19.88 acre tract. It's located south of Sierra Vista Boulevard and west of Cuatro Vientos Road. The zoning for 120 lot development is R1A. The proposed action is approved subject to the following comments from planning and from Parks and Leisure and a notice to developer.
Mr. Chairman, the engineer emailed us that he did concur with our comments.
Okay. So then what are the wishes of the commission?
Motion to approve subject to the comments.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second?
And a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? Motion carries. The next item is preliminary reconsideration of the plat of Green subdivision, Phase 10B. The intent is residential. It's a 7.9 acre tract located north of FM 1472 and east of St. People's Boulevard. It's a 67 lot development, R1MH. Proposed action is approved subject to the following comments from planning, from traffic safety, Parks and Leisure, and a notice to developer. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, and staff. J.J. Sedano with Bevel Consulting, and here to state that we concur with all your comments.
Okay.
All the comments.
Any questions for the engineer? If not, what are the wishes of the commission?
I'll make a motion to approve, subject to comments.
Motion, do we have a second and a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, do we have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.